Well, good to see everybody. Obviously, we're talking about recruitment, and one of the ways we can possibly find more people to work for us is by bringing them in via the immigration routes, which now is the only option really for getting people from outside the country. And we've got David and I'm sorry, Achenka.
Kanksha.
Yes, indeed.
Let's call Aki. That's a simple way.
Okay. Coming to present to us today on all about the immigration licenses and that recruitment process and everything. So I'll hand over to them. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, Robin. Thank you very much for inviting us to join you this morning, and also thank you to Simon for the recommendation in the first place. So let me hand over to Aki first of all, just to get things started.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Robin, once again for inviting us. Once again, good morning to everybody. I'm just going to have a quick presentation on the other side on the screen as we, discuss and, as we go through the whole discussion today. So just bear with me, and I'm just going to share my screen. So can you all see my other screen?
Yep, you can see that.
Perfect. So we're just going to discuss about the current, that we all are facing recruitment within the UK, which most of us are aware of it, and some of us are not, and hence we're going to find a solution for it and how we can overcome this situation and bring a skilled worker over via immigration route into the country. So let's just quickly go through, just bear with me, sorry. Let's just quickly go through what are the current issues, workforce issues that we're facing. There might be many, as you all know, but just a quick, review of it. We know there is a gap in the current labor market. We all are struggling to locate the right talent, right experienced people. And even if you find somebody, there are a lot of employee demands, as we know these days, because of work-life balance, because their family situation, because their personal situations. And even if you fulfill those demands, you still cannot get anyone who's really reliable, and therefore you always have this staff turnover. And eventually your business is affected, and your business growth is affected, your business sustainability is affected. So these are some of the important factors which is affecting your business due to this workforce issue. So today, me and David, we're going to give you a solution how we're going to go ahead and bring people over from not within the UK obviously, but across the globe. So anywhere outside the UK, there is a scope via immigration route to bring the skilled workers over. So that's what we're going to see how it's going to benefit, you and your organization. So you will see, you will always have, the opportunity to employ the talented skilled workers across the globe, regardless of the shortage. You don't have to worry about, I only have a limited north zone or south zone. No, the whole, globe is open for you. And because you're gonna, hire people internationally, you always have this, wide talent available, where you can pick and choose, right candidate specific to, environment, specific to some niche skills. They will be all fully weighted as per your requirements, so you don't have to worry about, if I need, for example, a specialty French chef. So I know that I'm going to certain areas where I can find this cuisine because it's a very, very niche cuisine. Because obviously you're hiring from international database, you'll always find people more creative and innovative. The reason being you have a wider option now, rather than hiring only 2-3 people, from the same, for example, same region, which is local. You will always have an option, to find more creative, workforce. And because you're hiring people from overseas, they will always give you the best flexibility, because bear in mind, they're coming over to the UK to explore, the new opportunity, to develop themselves, to grow themselves. So they will always, give you the highest flexibility, which is, the issue that we have, just discussed in earlier slide, which is their demands, because of their work-life balance. So anybody who you're hiring from overseas, that person might not have that much family responsibility, because the family might be, back home, whichever country he or she belongs to. So therefore you can get the maximum flexibility. And because of their, their attitude, which is, we all have seen, the attitude these days, it's very difficult, of this current labor. So obviously their willingness to learn and develop themselves into their career will always benefit your business, because they will always come more creative, more innovative, and more, they bring more ideas to the business, because eventually they will also want to grow with yourself. And because of all their, bringing their ideas into the business, or their creativity, and because of their skills, where they have exposure to different countries, their problem solving, capabilities will also increase, because we've got so many, for example, if we bring chef, we've seen, many chefs these days, they have this global exposure into many countries, European countries, Caribbean countries, Asian countries, GCC region. So they've traveled through all these countries during their career. And because of that, their teamwork, their problem solving ability, their skills, we've seen that they have gone from, let's say, 3 to 7, from 0 to 10. We've seen that, and hence their abilities are different nowadays. And because obviously because of their abilities, their experiences, their skills, we have seen, it will always help improve productivity and growth of your business, because eventually, when your employee will grow and develop, eventually the business, will develop itself. And with all these things, the most important factor that we all have, seen, and I'm sure you as business owners, you've also realized the employee cost, which is the biggest issue that we have seen. And all goes back, go back to the same points where, the cost is, high due to the employee demands, their unreliability, their, the staff turnover. So because of all these issues, we've always seen that the employee cost, or the labor cost has always been very high. So to reduce all that, the best, way forward is to hire people from outside the UK, so that, we can bring the fresh talent.
Yeah, okay.
And with the fresh talent, you will always see more productivity generated because of the fresh talent, more creativity generated, because of the fresh talent. And obviously you will have this opportunity to hire, I'm not saying as many, but the world is your oyster, as they say. So you can hire as many people as you want, as per your requirement, to suit your requirement, and you can always grow and develop your business. So therefore we strongly encourage all our clients, and to yourself also, to have this global approach in recruitment, not just have this limited approach, just to hire people within the UK. Some of you probably must have tried it, but if some of you haven't tried it, we highly recommend you to try that. And therefore we're going to give you the way now, show you the way how you can proceed further, and hire someone from overseas using the immigration route. So now the next point, I'll have David involved, so that he can explain you guys how you can bring over the skilled workers, talented skilled workers from overseas.
Thanks, Aki. Let's talk about sponsor licensing. I want to try and demystify this. There are over 30,000 businesses in the UK that have got a sponsor license, and that allows them to recruit staff from outside of the UK. This is a scheme that's been running since 2009. We've been involved with managing applications for licenses since that time. And we've seen quite a surge in applications over the last couple of years, particularly as COVID has taken people out of the hospitality industry. Brexit has taken people away from the hospitality industry. And the government has recognised that there is a skill shortage. It's arguable that they could have done more to support the industry in filling that gap. But what they have done is adjusted downwards the skill levels that somebody has to have in order to come and work in the UK. And they've also adjusted the salary levels to, in my opinion, make it a little bit more affordable to bring a skilled worker to the UK. Clearly, some of the clients we deal with will say to us, we've been paying agency rates for weeks to keep our kitchen going. And to have somebody now on a proper salary rather than an agency salary is a massive saving, which Jackie was alluding to earlier on. Now, the government, over the last 13 years or so this licence scheme has been running, it varies in how helpful it is. Sometimes they've been quite hostile to immigration as the government's changes, attitude change. In the last few years, they've been probably more helpful than they've ever been. By their own admission, when somebody applies for a sponsor licence, they are applying a light touch in terms of assessing whether you're suitable for that licence or not. And when once the licence has been granted, it opens up the opportunity to recruit staff from overseas. And let's just come back to I suppose the key benefits of that licence. You can immediately access labour across the whole world. You can employ people that are not here at the moment, so they might be working in a hotel environment in another country. But it also allows you the flexibility really to switch people who might be working for you on a part-time basis. Maybe some of you have employed overseas students before, and they've shown some promise, and then when they come to the end of their course, they're looking for a full-time job, perhaps in the hotel industry now. So these people can be switched into a skilled worker visa if you have a license. Similarly, some of them might be working in the UK for other hotels and they want to come and work for your hotel. Having a license allows you to switch them across to your employment. Now, as Aki mentioned, with a license, there is no limit to how many staff you can recruit from overseas. It's driven really by what your business can justify. And as I said, the UKVI apply a light touch. If they see that you've got the cash flow going from the business or a business plan to support the recruitment of 1, 2, 3, or maybe 10 overseas workers, then they'll generally allow you to do that. And the license, it runs for 4 years. It might take a few months to get it, which we'll talk about in a minute. But once you've got it, it's there, it's yours. And so that if you are coming up to a particularly demanding time for labour, having that license in your back pocket, as it were, is a clear advantage, because it means you can get straight on with the recruitment process at the time it suits you. So let's just have a quick look at how you get the license. Can you still see this slide? Is that still visible?
Yep.
Okay. The process to start with, it's quite straightforward. The UKVI are looking to see some documents from you, documents which you're going to have anyway. So either a lease or a freehold document for your premises, perhaps a franchise agreement if that's the nature of the business that you have. Your PAYE registration, VAT registration, employer's liability insurance, all standard company documents that go towards showing that you are fit and active and fit for purpose, I suppose. They also like to see an organisational chart from you, whereby you have got all of the various jobs in your business on the chart, plus the ones where you are looking to recruit for. So all the vacant positions, so you can get a sense of the scale of your business as it currently is and how it needs to be when the positions are being filled. There's an online application form that is quite straightforward to fill out. There are various documents and questions you send in with that application form. And then after that, the UKVI may want to come and see you either in person or via a call like this, where they will ask you questions about how you manage the staff you currently have, what sort of filing system you have for them, whether it's hard copy or a software system. And then they're particularly interested in working with you on how you go about preventing illegal working and other issues which are relevant to them as the sort of gatekeepers, if you like, of good immigration. So that they can get to a point where they can say, okay, we're happy. We can trust this business with a sponsor license. And then they'll grant it to you. Now, as I said before, there are over 30,000 businesses in the UK that have been granted a sponsor license. And this covers a range from the very big PLCs right down to corner shop restaurants. So the range is very extensive. And there is a license for everybody in effect based on the demands and needs of your business. Now, the process can be done through yourselves on your own. But our view is that it's always best to get a bit of expert input to it. But it's something we've been doing every day for the last 13 years. But having got that license, as I said before, you then got that asset, if you like, in your back pocket, from which point you are then able to recruit from overseas if prior to the summer season or prior to the winter season, you felt that you really had to improve the complement of chefs in your kitchen or managers in your front of house area, for example. Now, we can run recruitment and licensing pretty much concurrently because the two are complementary. So whilst the yellow boxes, the yellow circles, the license work is running, which normally takes about 3 months to complete, there is the option then to work with Aki on recruitment, whereby she will spend a lot of time working with you to understand the kind of skill set you're looking for, but also, and probably as importantly, the kind of character you need for your business. And that can get us to the point where, when the license has been granted, the candidate has been selected. At that point, then we can get straight on with helping you fill that gap. That's an option. You can obviously do the license first and the recruitment later. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do the other way around, but increasingly with our clients, as this shortage in skilled labour just worsens and deepens, new clients ask to do it like this, so they do two things at the same time. So that's pretty much us in terms of how the licensing works and how access to overseas labour, skilled labour works as well. Whether you use a company like us, whether you do it all for yourself, or whether you don't do it at all, obviously entirely up to you. What we wanted to do today really was to just try and demystify the whole process so that you have got a trusted and proven route that you can follow if you are at that point where finding the right level of skilled staff to get the most out of your business potential is an issue for you. I'm happy to take any questions from you, anything that's cropped up that's you're not sure about, or leave it there if you think you've got what you need today.
Okay. How I was going to say something that's slipped my mind now. Anybody else got any questions? Anything that they feel? No.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi. Yeah, very interesting. I'm just wondering if there's any way. I mean, I know employment agencies can't register themselves as sponsors as such, because they've got to find it's the actual employer who has to be registered. That's correct, yeah?
Almost. There is a way around it, and it depends on this differential.
Okay.
If the agency is just providing labour to different places, then you're absolutely right. They can't register as a sponsor. But if that business has let's say, a signed contract to provide the catering for the hotel down the road, then they can apply as a sponsor and put that team of sponsored chefs, for example, into that business to run the kitchen on a contract basis for the hotel.
Okay. So as long as the sponsor is as long as the payroll is running through that sponsored company, that's pretty much what we're saying then, I guess, yeah?
Pretty much, but it has to be, you have to be able to evidence the UK Business and Immigration Department that you're not just sending a chef to business A on a Monday, business B on a Tuesday, and business C on a Wednesday, because that's the provision of labour.
Okay. So
The difference is that you've got a contract to provide catering for this hotel for the whole of the 2023, for example.
So you have to be in control of a resource, basically, as the managing it, as it were.
Yeah, that's much better put than I've been trying to say.
So I think the issue here is there's a lot of smaller businesses that are struggling just as much, if not more, than the larger ones in finding and retaining good staff, especially in some of the more rural areas, and it's a real problem. Now, they don't want to, and probably haven't got the resources to, or the knowledge, or skill sets, etc., to go down this sponsorship route. But if there was an easier way of doing it, where you had a company, doing this, so it was an umbrella company, shall we say, to supply that would open up a huge amount of opportunities. Very similar to what we did with the Kickstart scheme that was going a few years ago, where we were a gateway for that. That worked, and that allowed smaller companies to be able to participate in the scheme and have everything managed for them. There's no similar scheme or way to do that within this sponsorship.
Not really, the government tend to take the view that the application fee for the license, there's two levels. One is aimed at small companies, one is aimed at bigger companies. It is only £536 to apply for the license. And to be honest, the majority, I would say, of our clients are businesses that are turning over less than £1 million a year, I think.
Yeah.
And they might only recruit one or two workers, might just want a key person to help bolster the skill set in the kitchen. They might want one person front of house, just to release the two directors who are currently working 7 days a week from having to be there every day.
Okay.
But the profile of our clients may surprise you. It does tend to be more the smaller business than the larger business.
Okay, I think just a lot of smaller businesses are just frightened by the whole, process, and that has to be done, and they just don't see it as a viable solution.
David. So, David and Andy, I was just going to say on behalf of David and Aki, really, that I've introduced David to, what was it, 3 or 4 clients now, all of which are, single sites or perhaps 2 pubs. And the whole point, I think, really is that David and Aki are here to, absolutely seamlessly guide those businesses through the process of going from no license to a license, and I think the other really big thing for me is the recruitment process. So Andy, I think you mentioned about, you know, rural locations and you know, those sort of constraints, but David and Aki, you know, take on board those points, and you know, they perhaps don't recruit the 24-year-old Indian chef who's, you know, perhaps come from a large city environment to go to Melton Mowbray, let's say. So it's very much matched according to the client's needs, and you know, the client is absolutely, you know, their hand is held throughout the process by David and Aki. So you might not want to say that, David, but I felt that it was important to give an appraisal from a, you know, someone who has worked with you indirectly at a number of clients now.
Thank you for that, Simon.
Thank you, Simon.
We didn't want to come over to sales pitch, Andy, but you know, that is the process that we go through. We've never had a refused application for a license. Nearly everybody that comes to us says, well, what are the chances of success? Will I get this? And the answer is unequivocal, you don't get it. So it does demystify the process, and we do hold their hand right through the process. So
that's really useful. That's really useful to know.
Small businesses are, I think, well catered for, if you pardon the pun, by the service that we offer. There are many other businesses doing what we do, who will do a lot less handholding.
And what are the obligations on the people that are being recruited? Because do they still have to pay like the NHS up front and things like that? So, because I know sort of some people, when they come here to work, they have to, there's a whole series of costs that they have just to get into the country, sort of thing.
Yeah, there are costs associated with that. I mean, there's an application fee for the visa that it's up for negotiation whether the employer pays that or the applicant pays that. There is also this health charge, as you mentioned. Now, this sounds like a lot. For a standard 3-year visa, it's £1,872. Now, before the sharp takes a breath, that gives that person access to the National Health Service for the entire time they're here. And it's one of those things. It might sound like a lot of money if you don't need to go to the doctor, you don't need to go to any an operation or something like that. But if you did, then all of a sudden that becomes worthwhile insurance money, if you like. So
is there any, because one thing that always confused me about that is if somebody is employed, they're already paying national insurance, which is in theory for the national health. So do you foresee at any point them actually sort of going, well, yeah, actually, I suppose you're already paying. Or
this is the government we're talking about. Very much whether that degree of rationalisation will come into the process.
yeah.
You know, we've had that question thrown at us a lot of times, but I don't see that's going to change for a short while.
And
sorry.
And do you get many hotels as you get? Do you get many of the people who are recruited then start moving across, or do they tend to stay in the place that's actually brought them over, sort of thing?
Well, let's bring Aki on that one.
I was waiting for it. Well, yes, it's like you said, Robin, it's an important question, and we have seen it. That's what one of my point was, the staff turnover and reliability. Now, bear in mind, you know, whoever is coming from overseas, there is this, you know, cost involved, and it's not a minimum cost. It is huge amount that they have to pay. So this is a human tendency that if I invest my money onto something, I am going to, you know, stay there, you know, for a longer time until I recover, you know, my investment. That's a human tendency. That's point A. But coming back to our recruitment, you know, strategy and planning, you've seen it in my previous slide, that we sit down with our client, we understand the requirement, and we make sure we filter right candidates, and then we shortlist the best out of it. And, we are talking to this particular person for nearly 2 to 3 months. So we kind of mold, these overseas employees in such a way that when they come to the UK, first, it's not going to be a shock for them. And, second, they understand that this is my right place to work. If I invest myself into this right place, I will, gain, not monetary gain, but I will gain, something into my career. There is, opportunity that I've been given. I will grow here myself. And then they know that this is a 3 years visa. They know yes, they can change. Let me answer that question. They can change their sponsor. But bear in mind, even if they want to change their sponsor, they will again have to invest the same amount of money, rather more, because if they come from overseas, the visa application cost is little less than if you change it within the country. And obviously within the country, if you want to change it, you want to change it quickly. You don't want to wait for a month or two, because that's going to jeopardize your current employment and your future employment as well. So they might end up spending more or double than what they have spent before they come to the UK, including the NHS £1,872. Once again, they'll have to pay it.
So if they move from one sponsor to another, they have to pay
yes.
a lot, pay again, sort of thing.
Yes, they will have to. So that's what I said to you. I mean, first, if you think only from their point of view, it is human, nature. Nobody, would like to spend the same amount of money or more again and again. Okay. So, and then second, talking about our recruitment process and the detailed, process that we follow, we kind of, mold them, we manipulate them, but in a good way, because it is our, responsibility to bring someone over with the right attitude, with happy attitude, and the happy-go-lucky kind of mentality also. Because, like I said to you, I use that word called shock. Yes, it will be a cultural shock for anyone coming from outside the UK, from a different country. And we kind of, that's what I always call it, like a matchmaking between an employer and employee. Because that is very much important for us, because at the end of the day, we work, with our client as their partners and not just an agency. So it is, equally our responsibility to bring that right match. And when you mold them in certain way, when you give them each and every idea about life in the UK, culture in the UK, working culture in the UK, alongside the employer that we're talking about, their future employer, there is very less possibility that they would want to leave, because they're happy. End of the day, they want this job satisfaction. And we've been lucky so far. All the clients that we work with, they have equally shown the same support towards the skilled worker that we brought in, because I'm sure even no employer would like to have high staff turnover. Because even employer would have to invest almost not similar but something towards, maybe like David said, towards the license application, towards hiring, sponsoring any migrant worker, towards his or her sponsorship, skill surcharge, everything. So obviously even an employer would not like any employee to leave. So that's how we normally work. But yes, there is a possibility that they can leave, but it's very small. The possibility is very small that they will leave, considering all these facts.
Just to add the points to what Aki said, Aki has the additional onerous responsibility of managing our Dubai office. And why she gets to go, I don't know, but she does. The point about that is, though, that we have an awful lot of the people we eventually bring to the UK come through our office in Dubai, which means we get to meet them. They're not just a face on the screen, they're not just a name on a CV. And she's out there quite a bit doing a lot of interviewing with these people. And Simon will know that we always want Aki to sit in front of the restaurant or hotel owner before we start to nominate candidates, so that better mix of character and skill set can be established. And bringing it back to basics, we have to put a replacement clause into our recruitment contracts. And it's not a particularly profitable business to have to replace people that have left. So Aki spent an inordinate amount of time trying to do what she can to minimise the likelihood that someone's going to leave. But it just costs us money if they do, as well as, you know, frustration for the client.
And obviously depends on the work and all the rest of it. But what kind of levels of salary are we talking about these days? Because you mentioned that they'd kind of lowered the limits, as it was. I mean, what sort of ballpark figures are we talking about now?
For a standard speciality chef, we're looking at around £25,000 to £26,000. Similarly for a floor manager or assistant manager, restaurant manager or a sous or head chef, sort of 27 through to £30,000.
So we're talking about £11 to £12 an hour, full-time employment, which is probably.
Yeah, those salaries are based on a 39-hour working week.
Yeah. So basically, we're probably talking about what everybody's paying already now, just to be competing in the marketplace for a good employee.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there are, because pre-Brexit, you'd have to pay nearly 30,000 for any kind of share. That was quite prohibitive, deliberately so, I think. But they brought it down by about £4,000 or £5,000 when Brexit happened.
Okay.
Is it still the case that is it still the case that they're quite tied to the employer? Obviously the visa is for the employer, isn't it, in terms of movement around once they're then here? Because it used to be that the employers had quite a lot of responsibility in keeping check on, you know, where they are and what they're doing. Is that still the case, or have they loosened up a little bit on that?
No, it's still very much the case that if you are the employer, then they are your responsibility. Yeah. So you need to be able to demonstrate, if asked by UKPI, that they're working to the conditions set out on what's called their certificate of sponsorship, which match through to their contract, which should match through to their pay and all the rest of it. And the location where they work can be something that's specified at the outset, and then they should remain working in those locations, doing the job that you recruited them for.
So it's actually quite difficult for them to move on, isn't it, once they're here? So in terms of a retention tool, it's quite, you know, if you get the right one.
Indeed, I mean, that adds to all the other things we're talking about, trying to get the best fit of the person.
Yeah.
As Aki was saying, it's expensive for them to move. And so, given that they need to go through the finding the money again to move, and then trying to find a better place to work without breaking their time here, because a lot of them would like to go through a 5-year run in this country working as a skilled worker, and then they become eligible for a settlement visa. If they have a break in that service, if the one visa ran out before the other one was applied for, or things like that, which can cause disruption to their 5 years, then they've shot basically, because their clock has to restart. So it's in their interests, really, if they're taking a slightly longer view of this, to find one good employer and stick with them.
Yeah.
So that's got, you know, obligations on both sides.
And is the license, say for example, there's a lot of groups out there that tend to be a group of individual limited companies. Does the license only apply to one limited company, or is there a way that they as long as the person stays within the group of companies, that license will apply? So for example, they take on a manager, and after a couple of years of training, they actually say, well, actually we want to promote him to be the manager of another hotel in the group. Is there a way that the license can be adapted to that, or is it very restrictive on that way?
Well, no, you've got lots of options there. You can either apply for the license for, let's say, one hotel in a group of 10, for example, or you can actually apply on behalf of the group. Now, if there is commonality in the ownership of the hotel within the group, we work with a client where they've got different limited companies that own each hotel. but the directors are the same in each company. They just register differently. So we've been able to get them all onto the same license. And once you've got different businesses like that on the same license, then you're free to set up for your chef, for example, to move from one to the other.
Okay, that's good. Indranil, I know you're experienced in this now. I believe you've got somebody. How have you found the experience?
So far, it's been quite good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I guess the normal practices apply. I mean, it's not something, if somebody comes by this route, they're quite smart people. So if you don't take care of them like any other normal employee, they will find their way out in some way or the other. So you have to take care of them just like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, that's a right point. And like I said to you before, also, this is how the equal support that you're gonna give it to them, because this is what I always say to all my clients, that these people are leaving their own life, their home, their family, and they're coming to the UK. Yes, obviously, they're getting this opportunity, and hence they're relocating. But they kind of need the similar support from their employer. And like I said to you, when this match happen, why would they leave? Because they're getting the similar kind of support, in the sense that, for example, accommodation, they're treating well, like every other employees. They've been looked after well, they've been given fair hours of work. I mean, I'm sure nobody these days make somebody work high hours and others work less hours. So when any employer look after these employees, similarly like family, for example, because that's what most of our clients do. And we have seen, they say longer. I mean, we are in this business for last 13, 14 years now, and most of our clients that we work with, they're still with us, and we've seen the people we brought 13, 14 years ago as our first batch of candidates. Some of them are still with our clients. They're still working. They got their settlement visas done. They brought their family over, and their kids are now maybe in the secondary schools, or maybe in unis also. So they're still working because they're getting they're satisfied. That's the word. They're satisfied with their job. They're satisfied with their employer. Like Indranil said, you look after them, they'll stay with you. Because they come here to build their career. Because bear in mind, nobody is going to come to this country when they're I mean, with all due respect to everybody, but not in their 50s or 60s. People coming, relocating this country where maybe they are in their mid-30s, maybe early 40s, depending on the situation, or maybe somebody is a chef de partie, maybe they're in the late 20s. So everybody want to build their career now. So therefore, their mentality is to stick with the same employer, do not do job hopping, because that will affect, my CV. And my maybe future employer will consider that point if I go and interview again and again. This is a normal question these everybody will ask. So that that's why they will again not leave you.
Good point. Excellent. Anybody got any other questions or any other comments?
I think the integration part does take some effort, because the first problem that comes up is, suppose they come in an area where everybody is hourly rated and this is annual rated. So it becomes a bit confusing. So one has to tackle it with a bit of kid gloves and see that there is no confusion on both the sides, the existing staff as well as them over there. And I mean, we found that is one thing that we had to sort out, so that everybody understands what is actually the terms of contract for them and for the others. And the rest is as Akansha was saying. I think it is fine over there. But they're all ambitious people. They're not going to last long with any employer. I think that's a pipe dream. So they will leave at some point of time. Only thing is, whether you take care of them also. I think that is there's something in the UK air, because I also came here 20 years back, that we don't want to settle down in a job over there. My first job, and before I came here, was for 16 years, And then this one, I'm here now for almost 19 years. We are the ones who like to stick on, but somehow the air is something different over here. After 2-3 years, you get that little bit of a fidgetiness that I must move on to another place now. And that I'm sure they will get, they are staying in the country now, so that air will also affect them. And it is bound to happen, but it is expensive on both the sides. I mean, from the employer side and the employee side. So I guess, let's see what happens. It's still too new. So we have started the journey and we'll see how it progresses.
I think this is definitely a route for finding your core employees. I mean, I've always adopted the philosophy that 2 or 3 strong, well-paid, well-trained, well-treated employees, backed up by the extra help on the odd occasion where it's busy, can be a lot more economical and a lot more quality service than relying on people who on a minimum wage and just the constant turnover of people who don't really have any conviction to stay with you. So I think this is definitely looking for that sort of core employee, as opposed to somebody who you just, but at the same time, it's what can build a strong business. So yeah.
In any case, the minimum wage, I think, has become a history now. So it is basically £1 to £2 above minimum wage is the minimum that you have to offer, so that you remain competitive in the job market from the employer's point of view. And I think we're all getting used to that. It's nothing bad. I mean, how long would this industry will have a stigma of the lowest paid one in the country? So we have to do something. And I think it is fine. I mean, the initial shock to the whoever is signing the check is a bit high, but later on they get used to it. And accordingly, you have to jig your selling prices, etc., to see that it makes sense.
Yeah, hopefully the whole impression of the hospitality industry is slowly improving, and things like this can only help to improve it, really.
Yeah, it's down to perception, isn't it? For so long, it's been the industry that people just go through because it's flexible. So if you're a student or a parent, it fits in, and it's not seen as a career. And to your point, Indranil, but you know, back home for you, I get, you know, it's a career, isn't it? And it's the same in America and lots of parts of Europe where hospitality is a career. So there's so much work to be done on the perception of the sector as just being something that you do because it fits in, and all this doing 6 months. I mean, to keep somebody 2-3 years right now is really great, because all of the CVs and the applications I'm seeing, they're doing 4, 5, 6 months, especially the younger guys coming through, because to them it's all about getting as much experience as they can in as many different workplaces. So if you're keeping people for 2-3 years right now, that's really quite impressive.
Yeah, I think, but as Robin said, that, you know, I think if we select the, you know, what we call the pillars, if you say the pillars right, and then the bricks can come and go. But if the pillars are okay and you manage to hold on to them, then that is the one that will help. And the fact remains, we can keep on saying in US it happens, in Europe it happens. It is not going to happen in UK. That's for sure. Here, I think it is very, very difficult for everybody down the line to take this as a career. This is that's my personal view. I mean, it's subject to a debate over there. But I think people with a hazard jacket is more impressionable to their girlfriends during the weekends rather than somebody with a waiter's jacket. And I think that's my opinion of the thing. I can be wrong.
Just to echo what Aki was saying, the people we tend to bring over are not kids. They tend to be people who've established a direction they want to go in. From a catering career is concerned, and they may well have young families, so they are accepting of the responsibilities in their life. And added to all of that, as we mentioned before, they've got this 5-year settlement target, which is something that it's hard to get your head around if you're a British person starting out in your career in the UK. You haven't got that line to get over, if you like, or that thing to aim for. And so it does help, we find, to create these sort of pillars, as Robin was saying, for many of our businesses. people that will give you that longevity, will stay with you. And many of them actually, once they've got to their 5-year point, and they've now applied for a settlement visa, they're no longer subject to immigration control, they stay put. They want to pay a bit back to the employer that's looked after them for 5 years, and they'll carry on working there.
Good point. Right, well, we're coming to the end of the hour now. Has anybody got anything else to add? Any other news before we close for the day?
Robin, just to add really to Lucy's point about hospitality being seen as a career overseas. So, you know, what I've experienced in talking to my friends that have, you know, worked with David is that those chefs that they have brought in are really highly skilled. You know, there's, you know, fantastic chef training in, you know, Indian subcontinent, and they come over here and that, you know, they're absolutely flying. And they've got a great attitude, and they're at a position in their lives where, you know, they are more stable. So I can't see how this isn't a win for absolutely everybody, you know, big or small businesses. Yeah, it's a solution.
I think when I was last in memory for me, when I was back in corporate, I was the HR and training manager at Lucknow Park, and one of our chefs there, Rishi Desai, I put him through, helped him with his can't even remember what you call it now. He'd done all of his visa, and then it was his kind of settlement thing. He's now gone on to win one of the big chef programs. He's got loads of Michelin stars. He's worked in some of the best places in the country, and is a real stand-up for, you know, all of our young guys to look up to see what amazing things he's done. He's such a lovely guy, and because he's come from somewhere where this is a career, and these guys are bringing that to us, and I think that can only be a really positive thing. To your point, Simon, you know, hopefully a bit more infiltration will make us, I don't think it's impossible that we can't get to that point where it does become a career. We just have to put the right development in place. We have to pay people properly. We have to look at the benefits. We have to make the industry more appealing to work, and we have to look to move a bit more towards flexibility rather than thinking, oh no, it's, you know, it's 70 hours a week because that's what we've always done. It's looking at the ways that we can step up and change, but I personally think it is possible.
Yeah, you've got, you know, absolutely right point, because this is what we have seen. I mean, like we've got this in Dubai, you know, many South Asian countries like India, Sri Lanka, Nepal. We've seen, you know, for those people, hospitality industry is a passion. It's kind of a show off as well, that yes, I want to get into this industry because it's one of the amazing industry, because it looks good, but because, you know, they come in with that passion. And, you know, with that passion, they get advantage of the curriculum, the education in these institutes, where they've been exposed to the global culinary, hospitality and culinary side. They know every cuisine around the world, because they get to learn every cuisine around the world. And therefore you get this multi-skilled background, you know, experienced chefs, I would say, from, you know, these part of, you know, world, or some of these countries. And you're right, because we brought so many, I'm going to specifically say Indian origin chef, but they are actually not Indian cuisine chef. They are probably, you know, they are French cuisine, the Spanish specialty cuisine, they're Italian cuisine, they're even, you know, the good English cuisine chef as well, and they're doing well. All, you know, they need is a little bit of training, obviously, because, you know, they're joining a new employer, so their new employer will have, you know, their own, you know, way of working, their own recipes, their own, you know, standard, you know, practices. That's all they need, and, you know, they can sail their own boat, and we've seen it, you know, for all these years.
Okay, and with that, I think we need to call it a day. We're at the hour. Thank you very much for giving us all that information, and thank you everybody for joining us, and look forward to seeing people in a month's time, hopefully.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.